Perks and the coach Youngbuck must be pretty satisfied. They're standing by on stage with Pulse. We'll hear exactly what they have to say.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to draw away from Dennis, our stage manager, but I am here with Perks and Youngbuck after that victory there. And first one to you here, Perks. First game was kind of back and forth, but the second game was complete destruction. Speak to me about what happened in that series.
I mean, first game was a stomp too, until I decided to not make it a stomp. I decided to troll a bit, so the game is a bit interesting. So that's the only reason why we actually went. I mean, I'm not the only reason. Like, we didn't play as clean as a team. Like, we should have played a lot cleaner. But I'm one of the reasons why we didn't play clean. So I take that on me. And the game should have been 25 minutes first game too. So, yeah.
Okay, well, Youngbuck, what was your take on that? What did you talk to your team about mid-series? Was it literally just Perks and you had to scold him?
No, it was actually a really big argument about the draft because we didn't know if we wanted to leave Shen open against Odoamne, but he's known for a really good Shen. So I think the entire 10 minutes of the mid-series talk was all about Shen or no Shen.
Very interesting. I kind of want to bring it back to the game, though, as well, versus Ryu. A lot of people have been saying that Ryu losing lane has been a big problem for them. So how was it for you actually playing against him in this series?
Well, personally, I don't think mid lane is that impactful role right now. So I can't judge mid laners by lane matchups because lane matchups are pretty unskilled. Even though there's like way to win the matchups, like by cheese runes, MR runes, or something like that. But Victor versus Azir is just Azir push, and then Victor clears with 1E, and then yeah. And Ryze versus Vladimir, I'm supposed to pressure him, and I did. So I don't think he did anything bad in these games. But from watching the other games, I would say he's underperforming compared to last split. So I hope he picks it up, yeah.
I was just seeing you over there make some facial expressions. Do you have an opinion on that matter, on like how mid lane affects like the matchup and how the meta is right now in terms of the game?
No, I think mid lane doesn't have as much impact, like he said. It's a lot about playing the Azir, playing the Victor, and just defending your tower. And if you ever overextend, you get punished, you lose your mid lane tower, and from there on you pretty much get snowballed on. So mid lane is a lot about playing very steadily and not looking for outplays right now.
Well, it seems like you guys obviously have a pretty good grasp of the meta right now. I do want to ask you as a coach here, Joey, like, what do you do from your perspective to stay ahead of the curve? Like, obviously you're ahead now in Europe, but what do you look at to carry on improving and stay above everyone else?
Flex picks.
Flex picks, all about flex picks.
No, actually, I think we have a really smart team, and we always have a lot of good meetings in which we can discuss the champions, what's strong against what. And I always ask all my players how they think about certain matchups before we start making drafts. So I know what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with. So when we actually get into the LCS, yes, Gangplank, show us. then we actually know what matchups we want to play, and I will make sure that they get it.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you very much for the insight, and congratulations on the win. Thank you very much for the interview, of course. We're going to send it back over to the casters to take a look at the rest of the game.
I'm not a caster, but I can be for you, Pulse. One thing we got to talk about, a lot to say about the mid lane and not being impactful, this and that, and you guys didn't agree at all. You had a huge what face?
I think mid lane is really important because usually, I mean, bot lane is really important because it links to the fact that you get turret pressure, map pressure, tempo pressure, and mid lane is the lane that allows the jungler to move into this bot lane to then after get the vision down and the pressure down. So if you get a good mid lane matchup or just a good mid laner player, then you get the pressure in the mid lane, which is the center of the map, which allows you to go wherever you want. And I think it's very important to, like, Perks played better than Ryu, which impacted the game.
I think in some regard it's fair to say that mid lane is not impactful compared to the other lanes, because I think mid lane is the least impactful, but it's still very, very impactful, because if you have, usually on red side, you end up having the better priority on the pick, or it depends if you blind pick Azir, etc. You get priority to move into these areas, you get priority to use your teleport if you use that, and getting priority into these fights and skirmishes that happen on the side lanes can be very, very important, but in the grand scheme of the game, tempo matters more on side lanes.
Yep.
And for this game, tempo was all dictated in the jungle. Very early on, level 1 transitions into the death of Jankos in the jungle as a Hecarim. So much tempo lost. You guys were like level 1 basically lost this entire game.
Yeah, sometimes it's even a matter to remake it scrims, you know. But the thing is that here, I mean, this is like the fight right after, and I think they played it pretty well because, like, the big Tam Kench had to go in so much time even if he dies. I think Expect got good ultimates to bring back at least 2 people, but really important because Sivir Tam Kench was really not a good lane against Lucian Karma, definitely not. And they needed the lane swap. Not only they got the lane swap, but they also killed Hecarim, and like for 1 or 2 camps, Rek'Sai being ahead is so much important in this matchup.
I feel like H2K wanted the lanes, but something they did very, very poorly was they showed up on a G2 ward at 120, and that gave G2 the opportunity to just walk up topside. And with that in mind, you know, from bot lane, if they are there at 120 showing up on ward, they won't be in time for top, so they have to go bot. Guaranteed lane swap. Massive mistake from H2K.
And from that, a lot snowballed player of the game is Trick. That'll be his 8th player of the game. He is by far the leader in the rankings now, which we'll look at later as well. You said very interestingly, nobody can challenge Trick. However, Spirit on a good day is better. Unfortunately, he's very inconsistent. What about Trashy?
Ooh, Trashy is getting there. You know, Trashy is expanding his champion pool. Is very, very smart. I think he's definitely top 3 and can contest these Korean junglers.
There's a lot of similarities when you bring things into team fights between Trashy and Trick. They seem to be looking for the same openings, getting the same kind of impact. It's the early game that's different, though. Trashy a little bit more about protecting his lanes more than Trick, perhaps. But we've started to see Trashy be more aggressive.
But to be honest, you know, looking at G2's games in general, they tend to be kind of actionless for the first 10 minutes. It's usually 0-0 with some CS leads on the lane phases. I think G2 in general play very, very smart and like to take games slow. I think saying that G2 are explosive, usually it happens with one big mistake like this one, then I can understand, you know, they are very swingy and heavy. But usually, first 10 minutes, nothing much happens. And, you know, a funny story is that Trick and Trashy, they are like butt buddies, so they talk a lot about everything all the time, you know?
They talk a lot about everything all the time. That makes all of us, yeah. Any case, H2K, talk to me about H2K then, because not being able to challenge a top team, would you say not being able to challenge G2 as when they're in a form like this is not the biggest problem? But then you see that Splyce is a team that very easily, or not, well, they had a very good game versus G2 yesterday. So what do you make of that?
I think it's really sad that they went 0-4, but they play against Fnatic and G2, which are like top 3 with Splyce right now in the ladder. So yeah, they are getting closer to us, so this is like worrying for them. Because like I think this is really going into the middle pack of the team, because H2K, since like a lot of time, we are saying they are really good teams, really good macro, really good perspective in the plays and stuff, but now they are like falling and falling and falling and falling. I'm pretty scared of how they are doing, because they're really indecisive, and now they even lose early game, which were Jankos was the first Blood King, so I don't know where they're going.
And I feel like they're a solid middle of the pack team. Honestly, right now, they've dropped out of the top. Splyce have perhaps replaced them in my mind. So H2K, I think they'll do very well when it comes to the first round, perhaps, of playoffs, but then may struggle a little bit later. Speaking of middle of the pack, Schalke had picked up a win previously in the series against Fnatic, I believe it was. Yep. And that series has closed out.
We got a tie!
We've got a tie! It's brilliant. Great. Everything is back to European. There's a Zillion in this game coming out of the mid lane for Febiven. So who knew he was adding a little bit more to his repertoire? Another long-ish game. It's only just wrapped up on the other stream here. So when we look at exactly how this one goes, Kikis on that Aurelia, long time Aurelia player. We've seen a lot of impact from Kikis coming back onto the roster. What have you guys made of perhaps Kikis' first week back from what you guys have seen, Sean?
I think it was pretty good. Like overall, like you see, it took a lot of 1v1, I would say already, which is like better than Gamsu in terms of like this mechanical aspect. But then after, in terms of team play, I remember like yesterday watching here the games, and I was hearing Kikis from the studio saying things, which is insane. So yeah, I think he did good.
I think Kikis is a definite upgrade. Like, I think you could see when G2 lost Kikis that their macro play kind of faded a little bit, you know, and then you have to credit that to Kikis, you know. Sure, you have a new player coming in, his first LCS split, and of course that matters, but Kikis, it's obvious that he has impact on macro play, and his 1v1 play is very good as well.
And with that, Fnatic now 1 point ahead of Splyce, 3 points behind G2, so it's very tight there at the top of the tables. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have our final match of the evening and the week here in the European LCS between Origin and Roccat. Don't go anywhere.
You can hear the energy of the crowd. That means it's time, ladies and gentlemen. Game 2.
Mithy, he won't drop. Yes, he will. Yanko's getting the kill. Expect goes forward. Ultimate comes out. H2K starting to drop.
Nice. Okay. Kill the guy and back off, okay?
Expect on the front lines. Vander going to go down. Trick, hungry for blood. In comes the Abyssal Void. Tonguelick, where's he going to go? Flash forward. It's on to Freeze. Exhaust comes in. G2 are barreling through H2K.
G2 eSports are going to take the 2-0 over H2K in such commanding fashion.